Happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. My name is Kaylee.
And my name is Desi.
Be sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell next to the subscribe button to turn on post notification. Before we get into this case, we always encourage those who have useful information to any unsolved case, please report to your local police and sheriff department.
Today we will be continuing into the mystery of the Titanic. This time, we'll be covering the mystery of the Titan submersible voyage. Do those people really want to see the Titanic and its glory at the bottom, or did they have an ulterior motive?
Some facts about the submersible. The submersible weighed around 23,000 pounds and was made of carbon fiber and titanium. It made frequent trips to the Titanic that lasted between 10 to 11 hours. Crazy enough, it was indeed operated by a video game controller. The Titan was designed to carry 96 hours worth of oxygen. It could only squeeze 5 people on board at the time. It traveled at 3 knots, which is roughly 3.5 miles per hour, using electric thrusters. And then once inside, the hatch was bolted shut. I believe it was like 17 bolts. It could go to a depth about 4,000 meters below in the ocean.
Which is a lot. Now about the Titanic wreckage site itself, it is located 900 miles off the coast of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. It sits at 13,000 feet below sea level. It lies in 2 pieces about 2,000 feet apart. The bow is still recognizable with many preserved interiors, but the stern is unfortunately completely deteriorated thanks to the ocean. There is a debris field around the wreck that contains hundreds of thousands of items that were spilled from the ship when it went down.
And if you guys haven't watched it already, you should watch our previous video about the Titanic. I'll put a link in the description below. So a little bit about the passengers that were on the Titan. Shahzada and Suleman Dawood, aged 48 and 19. They're a father-son duo. Shahzada is a trustee of the SETI Institute and VP of an investment company. SETI Institute, if you guys don't know what that is a nonprofit organization dedicated to research on life and intelligence in the universe. Stockton Rush was also aboard. He was 61 years old. He was the CEO of the Ocean Gate company that organized the trip. Paul-Henri Nerogeolet was aged 73 years old. He served in the French Navy for 20 years. He joined the French Institute for Research and Exploitation of the Sea shortly afterwards. He devoted much of his life to exploring the Titanic and led the expedition in 1987 to recover objects from the Titanic. Hamish Harding was also aboard. He was age 58. He was the president of Action Aviation. If you guys don't know what Action Aviation is, it's a company that specializes in the purchase and sale of aircraft.
So basically a lot of big name CEO people were on board, which is
a lot of billionaires.
To be fair, I mean, each ticket costs like $250,000, so...
Yeah, your typical person is not going to be able to afford that.
Hell no, not unless you rob a bank. Fuck that.
Or you could, get a loan out for it. Probably not the smartest idea, but
I don't know if
personal loans.
I don't know if I want to get a loan out for that much just to spend it on one trip.
Yeah,
no thanks.
You could do something much better than that.
Like buy a house.
Yeah.
That you could have for a long time.
In some places, there would just be a down payment on a house.
Very true. But the events that transpired Sunday, June 18, 2023 at 9:30 a.m., the Titan began its journey down to the wreckage. The first hour and a half of descent, the Titan communicated with Polar Prince every 15 minutes. This stopped at about 11:15 a.m. Cue the dun 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 dun. They thought nothing of it, though, until the submersible did not resurface as expected around 4:30 p.m. that day. Around 7:10 p.m., the U.S. Coast Guard was notified of the missing vessel, so almost 3 hours after they didn't resurface. That's crazy. Yeah, the U.S. Coast Guard, Navy, and Canadian Coast Guard began a search and rescue for the submersible.
They launched the search missions 900 nautical miles from shore of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Around this time, the Navy revealed that on June the 18th, they had detected an acoustic signature consistent with an implosion hours after the Titan submerged. They also said if the submersible had remained intact, they would only have 96 hours of breathable air supply, which would expire on June 22nd. Around 1:18 on June 22nd, the U.S. Coast Guard discovered a debris field 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic. This was later on confirmed to be a part of the submersible.
Badness, they're dead, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But into theories, we only have really 2 theories, but theory number 1 is that structure failure led to the implosion. It is a known fact that most submersibles cannot travel up to 12,500 feet, which is where the Titanic wreckage sits in the ocean, which is at the bottom of the ocean, which is crazy. But at 12,500 feet, the sea exerts around 400 bars of pressure, which is a lot, and we only experience about 1 bar of pressure up on sea level, so just imagine how powerful that is. The Titan contained some very off-the-shelf parts. Obviously, they had a controller controlling it, so that was pretty off-the-shelf.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, which is very unusual for a submersible. The Titan was also made of carbon fiber, which is very prone to possible defects and exhibits a more fragile behavior than other materials. The Titan's repeated voyages could have caused the hull to deform and shrink, and any small leak in the submersible would cause it to implode, unfortunately.
Out of all of the times that they use a submersible to go down to the Titanic, only 13 out of 90 of the times were they successful, so that's really low for a success rate.
Very true. And not just that, the company even had, the people who went on the submersible sign a waiver stating that they weren't responsible for anything that happened to them, which, could indicate that they knew failure could happen.
Right, and they mentioned death 3 times in the waiver.
They do. They really do, which is crazy.
And they also, fired an ex-employee for saying something about it.
Yeah, they did have a lot of safety issues on top of it as well. Whether they address those or not, we don't know, obviously, but to me, it seems like they didn't address them enough.
They definitely did not.
No.
Yeah, and with the implosion, I do see that as a very plausible theory, because clearly, as you can tell, after they found what remained left of the submersible, you could tell that it had been crushed, and going at depths like these, this sort of thing is not meant to do that.
Yeah, but now the Titanic has new passengers, so, that's a plus for them, I guess.
Yeah, they have some friends now.
Yeah, it's been about over 100 years.
Into theory number 2, non-accidental. So, Shahzada Dawood worked and owned Dawood Hercules. This company works for nuclear plants like Hubco in Pakistan to generate more energy. The day after the sub went missing, China did sign a $4.8 billion deal with Pakistan. The deal was to build a nuclear power plant. People also have speculated all 5 passenger deaths could have been fake personal or political gain. There is a lot of political tension right now.
Very true.
There's that. Life insurance fraud is also a possibility as well, because of basically there being multiple billionaires aboard on the Titan. Their families would benefit greatly from their deaths. And it would make sense since the CEO of OceanGate, who owned the submersible, was on board. It's also worth mentioning the company's lawyer, David Concannon, and Chris Brown, a friend of Hamish, not the singer, did not go at the very last minute. The company also waited a long 8 hours after to report that the sub was missing. I do find it a little bit weird that they waited until to really report it missing. But then they go and say, they're pretty sure it imploded early on.
I don't know, some facts just aren't adding up, unfortunately. What happened exactly?
Definitely not.
Seems very plausible. It could be not accidental as well. These, billionaires, they would pass down so much money to their, families.
Yeah, that is true. Their families would really be set for life.
Like, for life. Especially, like, depending on how much their life insurance policies were, too.
Right. And some of the people aboard were a little bit, like, older.
Very true. There was a man who was 73 years old, so...
Yeah.
You know.
And what I heard about the father-son duo, what's kind of sad is the son really didn't want to go, but his dad really pushed him to go.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that because they wanted to do like a trip or something together, or his father did.
Yeah, for like,
so.
Yeah, I think that was close to Father's Day.
Yeah, it was literally.
Yeah.
Like, it was on Father's Day, I'm pretty sure. So, you know, if he had just said no, the son would still be alive. I don't think he was going to say no to his dad.
No, I don't think so.
Into Reddit comments, of course. Per this Reddit post, OceanGate suspends all exploration and commercial operations following the Titan Submersible Implosion, which is to be expected, of course. This Reddit user, Badaraziel, whatever, says, preparing to get the living shit suit out of them.
Yeah.
Which, obviously,
yep.
You know. This other Reddit user, possible extent 3842, says, oh, for sure, I can't imagine they're going to survive the incoming lawsuits from the widows of these billionaires, especially the lady who lost both her husband and son. I can see them just liquidating the whole thing and paying out a settlement. The guy ultimately responsible for the whole thing is dead and gone as well. It would probably be smarter for them to liquidate. I don't know how that works in the case of CEO dying and an exploration that he organized.
Right. I like this comment. Oh, Lightning said, I would guess if they have factual evidence that Stockton Rush also told the crew to sleep after the battery had died 12,000 feet below sea level, I'm sure it communicated, quotation marks, we are all gonna die in this frozen tube and you will never see daylight again, end quote, will factor into lawsuits as well. Poor 19-year-old kid just wanted to live his life, but went only because his dad suffered from some midlife crisis needing a bonding moment. That sounds about right.
For Miss Sprinkles, that's a weird name, okay. But did they really have to suspend operations? I mean, who would still pay to get on this now? Jersey City Frankie says that they can sell keychains made out of the wreckage at a very high price now. Which is very true.
That
they
is
can recover the, objects. Oh my god. And then What a Croc says, my son died to see the Titanic and all I got was this lousy t-shirt. Personal Cheesecake says, my brother died going to see the Titanic. I went to a Blink-182 concert to go home. That's so funny. I love these comments.
Yeah.
Apparently, Lily Loudcat says that OceanGate has two other models of submersibles, which are called the Antipodes, which can reach depths of 1,000 feet, and Cyclops 1, which can only reach depths of 1,640 feet, allegedly. It's also controlled by a game controller. How crazy is that? Why would you use a game controller to operate a submersible?
Yeah, I'm going to use this Xbox controller.
That's smart, right?
Yep, and then there's another Reddit post called Presumed Human Remains Found Near Debris Field of Doomed Titan Submersible U.S. Coast Guard Says. Much-ad 1367 says, even during cremation, there are some identifiable pieces of bone, usually from the femur, large joints, and some parts of the skull. Granted, they are not bigger than a golf ball at times. Source, former crematory operator.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
To the last parade said, speaking of which, it's possible one or more of the passengers had an implant of some sort. Possibly a hip, maybe a knee, especially the old guy, probably. And if they did it, it is made of titanium. Which would make sense, so then they would easily be able to identify that. Ice_wind says, considering how fast it happened, I'm willing to bet. Plenty of thick bones and flesh remained. 10,000 degrees is not enough to incinerate a human body like Hiroshima did.
Dang.
We bring it up Hiroshima, man.
That was sad what happened with Hiroshima.
Hey, they bombed us first, man.
Right.
They shouldn't have done it. No, we were gonna come back.
True. Potentially _A _goose. Oh, I can actually explain this phenomenon. So, oxygen molecules are constantly bouncing around. They're bouncing off the walls, off themselves, off the people in the sub. The pressure chamber collapsing with the force 5,800 psi, a number I found here of someone guessing the collapse force a few days ago So if it was that force, then it would collapse incredibly fast, roughly within 33 milliseconds. All those air molecules would be then bouncing billions of times faster within the space provided and heating up as the force acted upon them grows. I personally cannot do the math on how hot it could have gotten, but I do know that 15 centimeter cubed of trapped air can heat above 200 degrees Fahrenheit within less than a second of compression. Wow, did not know that.
That's pretty crazy. But Sharing 620 said it would be crazy if the wreckage stirred up 110-year-old bones, notwithstanding how impossible that would be. I know, just a thought. Whitecorn said it's Leo's. In fact, his heart went on.
Do you think that their death was pretty instant?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'd be better if it was.
Yeah, probably. This comment from Barry Denon 12 says, I know less than nothing about the specifics of this particular disaster, but Charles Pellegrino's Titanic book talks about a phenomenon that he called shock cocooning. It was relevant to the Titanic itself and 9/11 as well, and it explains a lot of those how the fuck did the seamen survive the explosion questions. Some stuff is almost completely erased, while other very delicate odd items turn up looking almost brand new. In this case, I was sure that all 5 people would have been dusted completely, but maybe some denser bits of bone and stuff have been preserved. That'd be crazy, though. Being that far down and it being preserved is pretty crazy.
Right. I know with, like, the Titanic, they never really found remains because the people just went into dust because they were crushed by the water pressure once it had sank. But with the Titanic, you can find people's boots, though. Like their shoes. Yeah,
which is weird. You know, I guess it just is like a random selection of what is going to be preserved.
So, according to James Cameron, the director of the Titanic, and a Titanic explorer himself, this was an accident just waiting to happen. He was definitely not shocked that this happened, along with a lot of other people. Unfortunately for now, we do not know exactly what happened down there in the deep depths of the ocean. Leave a comment below on what you think happened.
And like always, thank you for listening to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. Remember to always keep your eyes open and don't go on a Titanic exploration. Otherwise, you might be the next one to end up being a corpse at the bottom of the ocean.